A reading from Lamentations, chapter 5. The joy of our hearts has ceased. Our dancing has been turned to mourning. The crown has fallen from our head. Woe to us, for we have sinned. For this our heart has become sick. For these things our eyes have grown dim for Mount Zion, which lies desolate. Jackals prowl over it. But you, O Lord, reign forever. Your throne endures to all generations. Why do you forget us forever? Why do you forsake us for so many days? Restore us to yourself, O Lord, that we may be restored. Renew our days as of old, unless you have utterly rejected us, and you remain exceedingly angry with us. This is the word of the Lord.
Thanks be to God.
Wow.
Happy birthday to you.
Wow. That was, wow, I'm speechless. I did not know that was going to happen. Thank you so much for that, by the way. That's really touching. It's so great to be turning 23 years old today. So it's really great. I won't talk too much about myself. Bob did a great introduction this morning. Again, my name is Scott. I've been attending TMP for about a year and 4 months, and so for me, in some ways, TMP is still a community that I'm getting to know, which means I'm still getting to know just the vibe, the culture here, faces, names. But for me, it's been a real refreshing time. In January of 2024, I took a break from pastoring at a church in Steinbach for 10 years, and I entered into Providence Seminary, and I've been working away at an MA of Christian Studies. And I'm about halfway done at this point in time. And people often ask me, Scott, do you like doing what you're doing? Like, how's life going? And I know that some of us struggle a little bit with life, and we go to jobs that we struggle a little bit with. But I have to say, I'm living my best life right now. Like, things are so good. I get to do the two things that I love to do. One is to just hang out with my daughter. And the second thing is just to be a Bible nerd all day long. And so I love those two things. A few months ago, Bob asked me if I would be willing to come and to preach on a Sunday morning. I said, of course, Bob, I'd love to do that. And he was hoping I'd come and introduce you to maybe a new friend of ours by the name of Daniel. So this morning, we're going to jump into the book of Daniel. And so what are we attempting to accomplish this morning? Well, we're going to enter into Daniel's world. We're going to do a little bit of historical context, a little bit of historical background. But we're going to also ask questions like, who is Daniel? And why should we care about this Israelite boy who lived thousands of years ago, a couple of teenagers around the age of 14 to 17, who were taken by this nation called Babylon and brought to a new place? Like, what does that have to do with us today? And what's with all these dreams and visions in the book? There's constantly kings having dreams and visions. There's this strange vision of these kingdoms that are rising and falling, and this stone that's not made by human hands, it smashes it into pieces. And then this other kingdom that comes and it lasts forever. And how is Daniel all of a sudden able to interpret all of this stuff? And so this morning, we're going to take a hard look at what all of this means for us living in Canada in 2025. And I want to introduce our morning by introducing you to a scholar by the name of Wendy Widder, who I think was really going to help us set the pace this morning for what this book is actually about. And she says this: history may appear to be running amok. I love that word, amok. But all is not as it seems. Israel's God has such control of the world that he does not rush about in desperation, marshal emergency forces, or play whack-a-mole with antichrists. He does everything at exactly the right time, even though his people and his name may suffer in the meantime. I don't know about you, but do you ever feel like history's running amok sometimes? Yeah. Like when I look out at the world, there's all kinds of things that disturb me and trigger me. And I open my news app every single day. I'm confronted with a whole bunch of problems in the world. I'm bombarded by things like proxy wars, genocides, political infighting, wasted resources around the globe, pandemic aftermath, food insecurities, the evolution of artificial intelligence, economic inequalities, refugee crises, cybersecurity, faith deconstruction, nuclear threats. And every single time I go to this website that's supposed to help me figure out what the church is doing, the Barna Research Group, they tell me how much the church is in decline. Like, I don't know about you. Are you triggered yet? Like, I'm super triggered by all of these things. This is terrifying stuff. And I know some of you are like, okay, Scott, maybe you might need to take a little bit of break on the Google News app. I'm like, okay, fair enough. All right. Maybe the algorithm's out to get me. I understand that. But I'm willing to bet deep down inside you feel very similar to the way I do. That when you look at the world, it's not as it seems. It's not as it should be. So what does God have to say about this? What does he want us to learn through the book of Daniel? And if you're okay with it, we're going to spend just a couple of minutes here, like Bible nerding out, okay? Doing something that I love. And then we're going to circle back around and we're going to pull out some meaning from the book of Daniel. So you're ready to do some Bible nerding real quick? Okay, get out your notes. If you're like a note taker, you're going to want to take note of some of these things. They're going to be like handrails that are going to help you walk through the book of Daniel when things get strange and we start going through visions and all that kind of stuff, okay? So the first thing I want to talk about is the structure of Daniel. Daniel is divided into 12 chapters. The first 6 of those chapters are narrative accounts about the experience of 4 Judeans in Babylon. And then the last 6 are apocalyptic visions. They're prophetic visions of this future kingdoms. They're going to come and go. And then this one kingdom that's going to come and it's going to rest on earth for forever. So half the story is, half the book of Daniel is story, and half of it is apocalyptic literature. All that means, by the way, apocalyptic literature is it's a Jewish form of literature that just talks about the end times. Okay, it's nothing fancy, it's just the way that they write. But there's also some language stuff that's happening in Daniel that's really helpful for us to figure out how to navigate Daniel. Daniel is a bilingual book. It means that the original writing of Daniel was written in 2 languages. Parts of it were written in Hebrew, and parts of it were written in Aramaic. And so what we'll see in chapter 1, which is the introductory chapter, we're going to cover some stuff in there, is written in Hebrew, but then it switches from chapters 2 to 7 to Aramaic, and then it switches back to chapters 8 through 12 and returns to Hebrew. And there's a reason for this. This isn't just senseless stuff. The author, he's trying to drop some hints in the text for us to be able to understand. So when we zoom into the Aramaic chapters 2 through 7, we're going to notice that there's a very clear chiastic structure here. There's a chiasm happening here. And we've been talking about chiasms. Ryan talked about a chiasm just a little while ago. But a chiasm is like an arrow. It's going to point us to a central meaning that we need to pay attention to. And so if you see there's these mirror events, in chapters 2 and in chapters 7, there's dreams that happen here. Nebuchadnezzar has a dream, but in the last one, Daniel's having a dream. Flips. In chapters 3 and in chapter 6, we see faithful Jews facing death. In the first one, we see Daniel's friends facing death in chapter 3, but later on, we're going to see Daniel alone facing death. And they're going to be delivered from that. But it's right smack in the middle, chapters 4 and 5, that we're going to see this couplet of kings, both Nebuchadnezzar and Belshazzar. What a name. Belshazzar. Being humbled. And this is a way for the authors to point us towards something very, very important. And it's this, that God humbles arrogant human kings. That when they assert themselves as gods or think of themselves bigger than what they ought to, that God is a God who comes and he humbles them, but he shows also that he is the one sitting on the throne. Again, I'm going to point to our friend Widder. She says it like this. As the book of Daniel hammers home for 12 chapters, he alone is sovereign, and when earthly kings get the wrong idea about their dominion, he sets them straight. Every human king is subject to a higher king. Have you ever heard that saying? Every person has a boss and your boss has a boss. Kind of the same idea. So what's the historic significance of the book of Daniel? So at this point in time, Israel is encountering, and they're in the midst of a very tumultuous time in their history. And Daniel and his friends in Israel, they're witnessing the collapse of their nation as a whole. Israel will become no more for a while and be absorbed into the other nations around this. And it starts with a little bit of history background. So way back, Israel and God make a covenant at Sinai. And the covenant is an agreement between two parties that say, I'm going to uphold my end of the deal. And if things aren't going to be upheld, then something's going to take place. And so God says, if you do good, good things will be done to you. But if you do evil, calamity, chaos, destruction, judgment will visit you. It'll show up on your doorstep. And Israel agreed to this, and God agreed to this, and they went along. But the most important thing of this covenant is that Israel was to worship one God, to worship Yahweh alone and only him. They were not to be like the other nations that worshiped other gods or multiple gods, just Yahweh. And as we know how the story goes, Israel is not faithful. They do a whole gamut of things to break this covenant. You see them extorting their poor, perverting justice, allowing political corruption at all levels within their nation, enacting violence against their own people and other nations, disobeying the law, the Torah, trusting in foreign powers to protect them instead of trusting in God, mocking the prophets. When the prophets would come, the prophets are like policemen in the Old Testament saying, you guys, there's an agreement. You need to go back to this agreement. And they mocked the prophets and sent them away. And worst of all, they begin to worship and make sacrifices to other gods, the thing that they weren't supposed to do. And so God said, time's up. I have poured out my grace on you for hundreds of years. Things have got to change. And God brings his judgment against Israel in the form of Babylon coming to Jerusalem and making destruction of it. In a sense, judgment is giving over what it is that you've asked for. It's giving you what you want. And Israel has apparently wanted all these other things besides their God for hundreds of years. And so Babylon comes, also known as the Chaldeans in the Old Testament, just the ancient name for Babylon. And they're a growing power in the world. They go and take over another nation named Assyria. And then God delivers Israel into their hands. And you can see this. It starts off the very beginning of Daniel, chapter 1, verse 2. And it says this: the Lord gave Jehoiakim, king of Judah, into his hand, Nebuchadnezzar's hand. Notice how it doesn't say that Babylon came and took. It says, no, the Lord gave Israel over. It's a little Easter egg in the text, a little tip of the hat for the author to say, a very subtle way, is that no, God is in control. He gave his people over to this. So there's 3 deportations that Babylon came and took Israel away. The first deportation or invasion happened in 605 BC. This is when Babylon comes and they set a king over Judah. It's a puppet king, and they start paying tribute to that nation. But this is where Daniel and his friends are taken to Babylon. They're a part of the first deportation. The second deportation, the second invasion, happens in 597 BC. Jerusalem is occupied again after some fighting, and then Babylon takes 10,000 people at that point in time into captivity. And the third invasion in 586 BC, this is a date that all Christians should know and be able to recall like that, because this is a terrible day in history. This is a landmark day in the history of our Bible. 586 BC, Babylon comes and utterly lays waste to Jerusalem and destroys Solomon's temple, destroys the very thing that is the center of civilization in Israel, levels it. So Israel has endured 3 invasions with different purposes, different consequences. And a lot of this is talked about in other parts of the Bible. So I want to assign for you some homework because I don't have time to go through with it. Would you do some homework if I assigned it to you? Yeah? Yes? Yes. Yeah? Okay, right. All right. This week, all I'm asking you to do is to read Jeremiah 25. Okay? Jeremiah 25, write that down, put it in your phone. I don't know if you're like a reminder person. If your small groups are getting together, just read Jeremiah 25. It's an important chapter. It's going to talk about this whole Babylon captivity thing, why it happens, how long it happens for, and then what's going to happen afterwards. Okay? It's going to give you some context, and it's an important chapter, and when we're looking at all of this. And you may have wondered, what is with this scripture that we read from Lamentations a little while ago? Like, what a strange, like, we don't often hear verses read from Lamentations. And for those of you who don't know what the book of Lamentations is about, the Lamentations is a collection of 5 poems. It's 5 chapters. It's 5 poems specifically about the destruction of Jerusalem. And Israel writes about this moment in their history. It's a lament. It's a grief and sorrow and repentance. And so I chose a portion of Lamentations to give us an understanding of the emotional world that Israel is going through at this point in time. The sense of guilt and trauma that they feel. And I don't know if you noticed it, but there's these questions that came. And I want to read those questions for us because I think that they're at the core of what Israel's feeling at this time. And some of the things that they say is, our dancing has been turned to mourning, our heart has become sick. And Mount Zion, which lies in destruction. And then questions come and they say, why do you forget us forever? Why do you forsake us for so many days? In other words, these questions give us a closer view, a human view of what Israel's going through. And put yourself in their shoes for a moment. Imagine if everything you knew, your workplace, your school, your society, your church, everything was leveled and you had nothing left. Your children were taken away from you. People were slaughtered maybe en masse, and everyone's taken to a different country. And the God who is supposed to be protecting you, you're probably going to be asking some huge questions now. Like, where are you, God? What's happened to us? I thought you were the Lord of Lords, King of Kings, most mighty God of all the nations, and this other nation, Babylon, has come and they've wiped us off the map. Like, what do we do now? Do you see our suffering? Do you care? Is this the end of us? Are you disgusted with us? And by the way, when a nation comes and takes over another nation, it's not just a military victory. It's a battle of the gods. It's like saying, my God is stronger than your God. It's like, my dad can beat up your dad. And so this book, at the heart of it, is in another way, Daniel is a battle of the gods. It's a face-off of the gods and who's going to win. But I think there's a deeper message within Daniel that I want to pull out for us this morning. I know God is faithful to his people. We talk about that. We want to really pull out, what does that actually look like for us, though, today? I talked about that. What does that look like for us living in Canada in 2025? And I want to take us to Daniel chapter 2, verses 17 through 23. And I want to pull out a little bit of a lesson here because I think there's something subtle happening in the text. So here's the context of this particular verse and what's happening here. So Babylon's king, his name is Nebuchadnezzar at the time, he has a dream when he's sleeping, a vision of some kind of future event. And he summons all the wise people in the kingdom to come before him. And what he wants them to do, what the wise men are required to do, is to interpret his dream. But Nebuchadnezzar does something that he's never really done before. Is that usually he tells his wise men, his interpreters, what the dream is, and they go away to the little books in their little rooms, and they read blood, and they read bones, and they read the stars and stuff, and they come back to him, and they give him an interpretation. But this time he doesn't tell them what the dream is. He says, I want you to tell me what the dream is, and then I want you to tell me what the interpretation is. And they say, that's impossible. No one can do that. Not even no one in the nations can do that. You're asking us an impossible thing. And so we pick up on the text, and it says this: And then Daniel went out to his house and made the matter known to Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah, his companions, and he told them to seek mercy from the God of heaven concerning this mystery. He goes and confers with his circle so that Daniel and his companions might not be destroyed, because if they don't answer this question, Nebuchadnezzar is going to wipe out all of the wise men. And then the mystery was revealed to Daniel in a vision in the night. So the first thing that Daniel does in this book is he runs straight to his companions. He runs straight to his community. Nothing in Daniel's mind says, I'm going to do this alone. The voice of God for him sounds like the voice of his community. And then what comes next is probably one of the most central aspects of the book of Daniel that help us understand who God is going to be in the book of Daniel. Daniel sings a song. It's called the doxology. He sings a song to God when God reveals to him this vision. And it's going to form who God is going to be for the rest of the book. And he says this: And then Daniel blessed the God of heaven. Daniel answered and said, Blessed be the name of God forever and ever, to whom belong wisdom and might. Daniel has been given wisdom and might throughout the stories. You're going to see him continue to be given wisdom and might. He changes times and seasons. He removes kings and sets up kings. We're going to see that happening over and over again. He gives wisdom to the wise and knowledge and those who have understanding. He reveals deep and hidden things. He knows what is in the darkness. In other words, he's not ignorant of all the chaos and the troubles in the world. And the light dwells in him as well. To you, O God of my fathers, I give thanks and praise, for you have given me wisdom and might, and have made known to me what we asked you. For you have made known to us the king's matter. Notice how Daniel says that you revealed to me what we asked. Daniel knows that he's going to need help from his community as he moves through all of this tumultuous stuff in Babylon. And Daniel made a request of the king later on in verses 49, after he gives the king his interpretation and the king promotes him. He doesn't forget about his friends. He makes a request and says that he appointed Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego over the affairs of the province of Babylon. So how does the church get through stuff? How do we move through hard times? Well, if you listen closely to Daniel, he teaches us that as Jesus followers, that we get through tough times by leaning into our community, committing to the relationships that we have in this room, sharing our struggles with each other, building up each other, engaging deeply in community, showing up, being present, being committed is how we move through the world. It's how we gain wisdom. It's how we continue to be faithful to our God. God is the central character in the cosmos, and Daniel's stories highlight this fact repeatedly. If God is on the throne, Our despair and our disappointment belong at his feet. If he alone is sovereign, nothing can thwart his plans or manipulate his ways. If a human leader serves God well, then we should pray for them. And if a human leader runs amok, we should pray for them. It's the same at both times. The world should know that Christians are for unity, that our testimony is a testimony of unity within our churches, how much we love one another and support one another while we move through exile should be the mark of the Christian. And most importantly, that we should be known by who sits on the throne more than anything else. More than our political alliances, we should be known by the God who sits on the throne. Because when all the nations rage, when all the nations come tumbling and crashing down, God's kingdom will stand with us forever. Howdy.
Here we are.
Here we are.
Together.
Aw.
Everyone gets a little glimpse into our marriage. It's fun because, we've been talking about Daniel, obviously, as Scott's preparing, and so it's funny because during the service, I'm waiting to hear all the great insights I provided to Scott to make their way.
It's true.
And yet,
I do have to credit you for many of my thoughts. It's very true.
So I didn't hear many though. This is you and the Lord. This is you and the Lord today.
Oh,
so
thanks.
That's great.
Thank you.
We'll talk about it on the ride home. 10 years, baby.
Yay! Our 10-year anniversary was yesterday, by the way. That's what she's.
So I want to pitch an opportunity for you to tell us about the book you're holding in your hand.
Oh, yeah. So because I had a couple of months to prepare for Daniel, and because I'm just a reader and a Bible nerd, I read pretty widely. I read, Jewish midrash and commentary and just all the things I can. And so this morning I just wanted to curate something for you. If you want to understand Daniel a little bit more as we go through this this series, I found, and I've referred to her a couple times this morning, Wendy Widder's commentary on the book of Daniel is excellent. She's writes very easily. She's an ancient Near Eastern scholar, and I just found her work to be the best out of the best that I've went through. There you go. Just curating some stuff, that's all.
Mm-hmm. That's great.
Yeah.
Scott always has a stack of books right by his side his desk because he's always writing all these papers.
This is true. Yeah.
I can always tell when it's the end of the semester because that book goes from about a foot tall to down to nothing. So just pleasure candy reading commentaries on Daniel instead. Okay, some questions. Well, of course, everyone's pumped that it's your birthday, so some happy birthday wishes
Thank
to
you.
you again. 23 years
23
young.
is going to be good.
Yeah.
It's my year.
So God's judgment towards his people is a hard subject.
Yeah.
Can you say more about how we are to understand that in light of the Old Testament and now that we're in this new covenant, New Testament era?
Yeah, so judgment for us can be a really scary term, and it can evoke a lot of emotions. So I just want to, first of all, say that. Judgment for us, it can be really scary, and partly because we don't have a reference, a framework for what judgment means. So the simplest term I would say, judgment is just another way of God giving you a taste of what it is that you've wanted. And he's allowing you over and over again to taste that. You're probably going to find out that's not the thing you actually wanted in the end. But judgment, just like the night always goes before the dawn, there's always a restoration that comes after judgment. And partly why I had you read Jeremiah 25 is because this moment of judgment that's come on Israel's head, it's not going to be there for forever. There's a restoration after that. God is a God ultimately of restoration. There's moments where we experience this sting of our own decisions, our own consequences, but he's always about restoring us in the end. And he's also faithful to send people our way, whether they were prophets in the Old Testament or friends of ours today or wise voices, however you want to say that help us navigate things sometimes. And so if you look in the book of Proverbs, one of the characteristics that's talked about the most for a wise person is someone who invites correction. If you're a Christian who invites correction into your life, you will remain a wise person. That's just how Proverbs works.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you very much for that. Another question. So we see in Daniel that he's going through this experience of change that's happening in his nation.
Yeah.
It doesn't look like God is on the throne. So
No.
the question is around this idea of how do you hold on to this image or this recognition of God on the throne, Jesus on the throne, when nothing in your realm really is.
Yeah, it's pointing to that. Yeah. Okay. Well, real quickly, God is working in the book of Daniel, but he's working very subtly. He's working in between the lines. He's working through his people. He's providing them strength, and he's providing them wisdom to navigate difficult circumstances. And so God isn't like leading the charge against the nations in the book of Daniel. It's not overt like that. He's working subtly through his community, through his people. And I could say more about that, but I think that's probably the best thing I could say at this time. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you for being here.
Yeah.
You're welcome for lending the stage to you. And I'm just kidding. Bob asked. So I'm going to leave it for you to usher us on.
Yeah.
For today.
Thank you. All right, I'm just going to say something. It's going to be a little bit awkward, but I just want to say this. Tomorrow is April 28th. What does that mean? Voting, that's right. Tomorrow is our federal elections. And I just want to say this, and I want to tie it back to Daniel really quickly. Next Sunday, some of us are going to come to church, and we're going to be really pumped about the results. Some of us are going to come to church, and the results are going to be discouraging for us. And the question that's going to be on our mind is, what does it look like for us as a church to remain unified with each other and do the Romans 12:15 thing, which is that we rejoice with those who rejoice and we weep with those who weep. And so this week, I encourage you to take a moment to consider, what does it look like when we gather back together next Sunday and we talk about elections, and we talk about how things are went, and we talk about our feelings. How are we going to minister to one another in that moment? And so this morning, I want to leave us with a blessing from Ephesians. It's a blessing that Paul gives us while he's in prison, and he says this: I, therefore, a prisoner for the Lord, urge you to walk in a manner worthy of the calling to which you have been called, and with humility and gentleness, with patience, bearing with one another in love, eager to maintain the unity of the Spirit in the bond of peace. There is one body and one Spirit, and just as you were called to one hope that belongs to your call, one Lord, one faith, one baptism, one God and Father of all, who is over all and through all and in all. But grace was given to each of us according to the measure of Christ's gift. Have a great week.